What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so look, I have a lot of subscribers who are into politics, and I do get requests to talk about political topics. So I'm aware that now that we're in a time period where more and more trending topics, I guess you want to put it like that, will be related to politics. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this on my channel now. I will still talk basketball and sports and other topics, but I just want to put that out there. So you don't have to look at these particular videos. And I will still talk about the NBA and things that you want to hear about. So I just did a video about a report that a Parkinson's specialist visited Biden's doctor and perhaps other individuals at the White House 8 times in the last calendar year. So now it's being reported. Not being reported, actually, it was on an MSNBC show. Left-wing documentary filmmaker Michael Moore accused Biden's team of essentially committing elder abuse. Right, so he appeared on an MSNBC show, and he made these comments there. But he also, I think, spoke on his Rumble podcast. So Moore, who has been, as of late, a vocal critic of Joe Biden's, took aim at the commander-in-chief's team over the weekend amid growing calls from Democrats for him to give up his re-election campaign. He said on his Rumble podcast, quote, "If I have to be the only one to stand for Joe Biden," that's right, you heard me say that, "if I have to be the only one to stand for Joe Biden here to protect him from the cruelest form of elder abuse I've ever been forced to watch, well, then that's what I'll do." Yeah, so, I mean, look, man, we all know what we saw. We all know what we saw at that debate. That wasn't just jet lag. I remember seeing vaguely Ronald Reagan toward the end of his ironically, I yawn saying that. But I remember seeing Ronald Reagan 87, well, really 88, 89. I wasn't playing politics when I was 7 years old, but I remember hearing him in press conferences or interviews by the media. And there were times when he appeared a little tired. And that's when he was about 76, 77. And you could clearly see, as I got a little older and I was able to analyze how he walked and talked 81, 82, 83, and then I saw him in 87, 88 into 89. Yeah, you could see that there was a little change, a subtle change. But he was nothing like Joe Biden. Joe Biden clearly uh, looks like a man who is ailing, okay, at the very least. And I saw, what's his name, man? The man who ran the 92 campaign, the New Orleans, what's his name? James Carville. James Carville was on Chris Cuomo's podcast or show, and he was talking about, look, it's inevitable. If you live long enough, you're going to have some sort of decline. We see it with our parents. We see it with our loved ones. They start forgetting things. Um, they slow down. And it's happening earlier to Biden than some others, but it happens. Even people who live to be 100. I've seen a guy who was an actor. I think the one that was on St. Elsewhere, the one that lived to be 106, 105. When he was 100, 101, he was still moving. He was still pretty strong. But then when I saw him when he was 103, 104, I could see, okay, now he's starting to decline. He started getting frailer. Next thing I know, the next year he was in a wheelchair. I said, okay, now he's starting to decline. And he passed away the next year after that. So it happens at different paces, at different stages, but Joe Biden is clearly not the same person he was just 2 years ago, let alone when he ran for the presidency in 2020, when we already were calling him Sleepy Joe. So this is the thing, though. There's only 5 weeks left. So, because look, if Joe Biden is going to drop out, it has to happen within the next week, I say, because you got to have time for the party mass to rally around another candidate. Um, then you have to build some sort of consensus around a new candidate because it's going to send absolute shockwaves. So if Joe Biden is going to drop out, which he seems adamant that he's not going to do, um, it has to happen soon. But yeah, getting back to Michael Moore's original point, though, this is sad. The Democratic Party, his handlers, his advisors, what they're doing is disgraceful. And to a great extent, I have to blame Jill Biden too. This shows you how power hungry some of these people are. There's no way in hell that you and I, what we've already been seeing for a couple of years, that debate performance was the absolute worst debate performance of any major presidential candidate by far in history. In history. In history. You know, it's funny, the liberals always made a big, stink of how bad Nixon looked in 60. But the thing about it is, yeah, he was sweaty on camera, and his suit, the gray suit he had, made him fade into the background. He looked sickly and all that. But his actual performance, his rhetoric, his substance was great. It just was just from the optically he looked bad, but the substance was great. As a matter of fact, if you ask the audience of the radio, the people who listened to the debate on radio thought Nixon won decisively. It was just that the television medium, uh, Nixon looked bad. That's why, you know, the next couple of debates, he wore black suits. Um, he made sure that he was clean shaven to get rid of that 5 o'clock Sunday, 5 o'clock shadow that he always had. He drank the milkshakes to make sure that he put on a little weight because he was sick at the time. And then another thing that helped Nixon too is black and white the black and white television, because Nixon had certain characteristics of his skin. It made he looked better when television became color. When television moved to color, he just looked a lot better than he did when it was black and white. He kind of looked transparent and Dracula-y. But anyway, uh, I'm sorry. Sometimes I can get too caught up in talking about history stuff. But as bad as that debate performance was, this was absolutely garbage. I mean, he was terrible from an optic standpoint and from a substance standpoint. I mean, this guy said he saved us from Medicare. He was mumbling. He was so bad. And they say he was tired, but according to reports, the man sleeps 10, 11 hours a night. He goes to sleep at, 10 p.m. and wakes up at 11 p.m.? What is that? That's actually more than 12 hours. And he's still tired? Who's president? Who's president? To me, it sounds like the people who really running things are Jill Biden and probably Kamala. And maybe the chief of staff. Joe Biden is being used as a pawn, uh, a pawn for the American people. He's the puppet that they can get votes for them to be and power behind him. Now, I'm not saying Trump is better. I'm not saying that. But he's not in power. Now, you can go out and vote for Joe Biden. You can go out and vote for a guy who isn't fit to be in office. That's your prerogative. But I just don't want to see one party try to play the moral police and you're doing what you're doing with this guy. I've heard reports that sometimes donors or high-ranking Democratic officials will be talking to this guy, and he'll sound normal, and then all of a sudden he'll just freeze up, and someone has to whisper into his ear to say something. Thank you for your time, and he'll just shuffle off. Do you really want that man as president? That's not a guy that's fully in charge. He's not. So, in my opinion, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, who herself is starting to show signs of aging, all of these guys, all of the old, tired Democratic leadership need to just step down. Bernie Sanders, too. Elizabeth Warren, all these people are in their 70s and 80s. Dianne Feinstein died in office. Robert Byrd died in office years ago. Strom Thurmond, even though he switched to the Republican Party, all these people they almost died in office. I think Strom retired 6 months before he died. He was 99 and a half. No, he wasn't. He was 100. He was 100 years old when he left office. We don't need that, man. We don't need that. It wasn't designed for these people to hold on to power like this. But you know what it really is about? It's about the narcissistic boomer generation refusing to cede power to Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z. Or really to us, Generation X and Millennials. Generation Z, we don't know what's going on with those guys, but this is the boomer generation not wanting to cede power. They're holding on since the 60s and 70s. They've been holding on to power. The Clinton generation, Gore, and all these people, they think about it. Obama was born in 61. Every other president we've had been born in the 40s since then. All these people running for office born in the 30s and 40s. It's time for a new generation to take over the Republican Party, to take over the Democratic Party, to take over the Green Party, to take over the Libertarian Party, to take over all of the other minor parties. You've had enough time in the sun. Enjoy your golden years. That's how I look at it. Tell me what you guys think.